So we have breaking news coming out of New England, plus all my injury updates for Week 4 coming right up. What's up, everyone? You're listening to the Gridiron Fantasy Football Podcast for Saturday, October 3rd, 2020. And I am Chip, and I'm your host, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Now, I generally don't do a podcast on Saturdays, but because of the severity of the news that took place on Saturday morning, I want to make sure all my viewers on YouTube and my listeners on my podcast are up to date of all the information that's taking place on Saturday morning, because big news hit on Saturday. New England Patriots quarterback Cam Newton has tested positive for COVID-19. So he has been ruled out for Week 4, and it's possible that he'll be ruled out for Week 5 based on his symptoms. But on the other side of this, the game between the Patriots and Chiefs has been postponed. They will no longer play on Saturday or Sunday afternoon. The game is potentially going to be rescheduled for Monday or Tuesday. Adam Schefter did come out and say that Tuesday seems to be the most logical day because they want to make sure there's more testing that's taking place and more negative cases before they proceed with playing in the game. So obviously this makes, huge news based on what happened with the Titans and Steelers, because this is kind of the same scenario that happened with the Titans and Steelers. A couple Titans players got positive for COVID-19, then there was some personnel on the Titans staff as well, and then there was hope that postponed the game for Monday or Tuesday, and then a day later they came out and said they're going to have to reschedule the game for later on in the season. So this is something that needs to be monitored, because obviously this affects the fantasy lineups. This affects just how you look at the week going forward. But honestly, the most important thing is the players' health. Obviously, everybody involved on the Chiefs and on the New England Patriots and Cam Newton, their health comes first. So all the thoughts and prayers for Cam Newton on a fast recovery, because that's what matters most, not fantasy, but because this is a fantasy football channel and podcast, there has to be relevance to this in the sense of what to do based on this. So, we don't really know how to go forward with this, right? Because we got a few options, right? Because we did see the Atlanta Falcons have a player that tested positive last week, but nothing changed the game. The Falcons went on and played. There has been no positive cases for the Atlanta Falcons, so they've been pretty much negative in all their cases. And then you have the Minnesota Vikings, who play the Tennessee Titans. So far this week, based on all the testing that took place for the Minnesota Vikings, they have no negative cases as well. So it's hopefully likely that if Cam Newton is the one isolated player, then the game will go on as scheduled on Tuesday. But we don't know until Sunday comes around and Monday is there going to be more positive cases. So my expectation for this is, obviously, if there's no more cases, they play on Tuesday. Obviously, if anything comes out tomorrow morning or over Saturday night, if there's any cases that become positive again for more players, then obviously I think the game gets canceled. But this is obviously something. How does it affect your fantasy lineups? Well, like I said, it all depends on the testing. If the testing comes back with no more positive cases, then nothing changes for the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs other than Cam Newton being ruled out. But there was a practice squad player on the Kansas City Chiefs, Jordan Tayomu. I'm not pronouncing his name probably right, but he is a practice squad quarterback on the Chiefs. So obviously, if he's in the same room with Patrick Mahomes and some other the players, and then he's on the practice squad and he's touching the footballs and he's doing all these things, within the actual facility, did he expose any of the players on the Kansas City Chiefs? So obviously, as of right now, he's the only player who became positive with COVID-19. But as of right now, there hasn't been any starters or anything on the active roster that came positive. So that's still quick to change, so we really don't know. But when it comes to how there's different options when it comes to how you're going to set your fantasy lineup for this week, right? So option one is no new cases no new cases happen, and you play all your players like usual, right? So in my main league, I have Tyreek Hill. I have in my lineup as of right now, based on what I know of the information that at the recording of this podcast, Tyreek Hill right now is in my starting lineup. But something can happen later on today or on Sunday that could determine me have to change my lineup. But the best case scenario, no more new cases. The New England Patriots and Chiefs play on Tuesday, and you can play all of your starters for the New England Patriots plus the Kansas City Chiefs. But then option 2 is you don't adjust your lineups, right? You have the Patriots and the Chiefs players in your starting lineup, and you risk it, right? You say, okay, well, I'm not going to play. I'm going to risk, playing my Chiefs or Patriots, and then you don't adjust your lineup. But then the Sunday and Monday games are already in the books, and then you're out of options, and then you lose or you don't have players to get you points because you didn't adjust your lineups because you risk hoping that the teams will play. Now, obviously, I think before the games start on Sunday, I think we'll have a better idea when that game will be played. My guess is if one player gets positive for COVID-19, doesn't necessarily mean that the whole game's going to be canceled, as we saw with the Atlanta Falcons last week. So that is option number 2. You risk it, and then something happens where the game does get canceled, but then you can't adjust your lineups because those games have already been completed. And then option 3, you don't risk it. You find substitutions for your roster. You figure out who the best waiver wire pickups are on your roster and go from there. Because obviously, it's rather be safe than sorry. You rather get some points than no points. But this is the nature of 2020, right? This is the fantasy football, with dealing with injuries plus COVID. There's so many variations of what you have to do, and it's so unpredictable. So I think it's something that now you just have to make the best decision for what's best for your lineup. So with that being the case, I want to give you some names that you can maybe pivot to if you have these players on your roster that you may need to fill in for. So at quarterback, I think based on who's available in most of the leagues, I've been mentioning Gardner Minshew in my waiver wire pickup episodes. I think if he's available, pick him up. If Baker Mayfield happens to be available, pick him up and play him. Teddy Bridgewater is a decent pickup. You got Nick Mullins because Jimmy G's out tomorrow. So those are a few quarterbacks that possibly could be available for you in your leagues. If Nick Foles is available, Nick Foles could be another name. I know it's not a sexy person to play, but right now you have to try to fill your roster if these guys don't play. And then at running back, you have Brian Hill of the Falcons. He's a guy that you could pick up and play if you need to. J.D. McKissick, he's on the Washington football team, so he's the backup to Antonio Gibson, so he may be a person that you can pick up and play. Now, this is kind of new, but Joe Mixon is now on the injury report with a chest injury, so that means that Giovanni Bernard becomes an interesting piece, because if Joe Mixon is out because of his chest injury, then that means that Giovanni Bernard will be the starter. So he may be a guy you can pick up. You got Chase Edmonds. And then going into like the Seahawks game, if Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde don't play, then you got Travis Homer. So that's an option there. So there's a few guys there for running back. At wide receiver, you can pick up Randall Cobb if Brandon Cooks is available. You got Anthony Miller if he's available. Dontrell Inman for Washington if he's available. If Terry McLaurin does not play, you got Kendrick Bourne, Brandon Ayuk if those guys are available. Maybe look for Deebo Samuel if he happened to be dropped in your league, and he's supposed to be returning tomorrow for week 4. So if he's available, he's a guy that you can pick up. Tre'Quan Smith of the Saints. If Emmanuel Sanders happens to be dropped in your league, you can try to pick him up. You got Golden Tate. I picked up Hunter Renfrow in my league, so Hunter Renfrow becomes a good PPR option. In Philadelphia, they have nobody at wide receiver, so Greg Ward becomes really the only target right there in Philadelphia, so he can be an option. You got Scotty Miller possible for the Bucks. Justin Watson for the Bucks could be an option. And you got Andy Isabella of the Arizona Cardinals because DeAndre Hopkins may be out. So you got some options there if you need them for wide receiver. And then when it comes to tight end, if you're out Kelsey, and then Jonnu Smith or Eric Ebron, whoever's on your roster for your tight end, Logan Thomas is an option, and you got Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers, so he's available. So, these are a few names that you could grab if you are dealing with figuring out who to pivot to if you decide to not risk, starting some of the Chiefs and the Panther or the Patriots players, because you want to try to make sure you have your best lineup going forward, but sometimes having some points is better than no points when it comes to like risking playing Tyreek Hill or Patrick Mahomes, and then they don't play at all and you lose your fantasy week. So this is just the thing that you can do to pivot and hopefully salvage some of your roster. And then now that the Patriots and Chiefs game has been now postponed and possibly rescheduled, they have now moved the Colts and the Bears game to 4:25 on Sunday. So they were going to play at the early slate of games. Now they got moved to 4:25. So now there's going to be 8 games early and 3 games late. And then obviously you have your Sunday night game plus your Monday night game this week as well. So a lot of news, a lot of things going on in the NFL. I mean, a crazy Saturday morning. I want to make sure that I had all my information I could get for you guys and be as updated as possible before I drop this podcast and the YouTube video. But this is the nature of what's going on this year. So with that being said, I'm gonna go through all the injuries right now for Week 4 and players that are going to be out, and hopefully the people that I've mentioned above, in the earlier, just a few minutes ago in the podcast, that you're able to grab, because there's a lot of guys that are not going to be playing this week. So we're going to start off with Allen Lazard. We know that he's out indefinitely with a core injury. I'm not sure. I was trying to look at some of the information about what kind of surgery that he had. I couldn't find anything to determine how long he's going to be out, but it looks like he may be out for at least 6 weeks. But Allen Lazard obviously is out for Monday night. And then Raheem Mostert, he's still dealing with his knee injury, so he's out. So that means Jerick McKinnon will be likely starter. And then also, I forgot to mention Jeff Wilson too. So Jeff Wilson, if you need a spot start too, Jeff Wilson's another name that you can grab just in case you need him. And then we have Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not playing. He's still dealing with his ankle injury, so that means Nick Mullins is obviously going to be the starter for the 49ers. For the Bucs, Chris Godwin, he's out. He's dealing with the hamstring. He and Leonard Fournette. So Leonard Fournette and Chris Godwin are out for Week 4. And the Bucs now playing Week 5. So that means that there's a potential that these two players could miss 2 games in a row based on the short week. And then the Eagles wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, he's out with the hamstring. He will not be playing in Week 4. And then Michael Thomas is out for Week 4 for the New Orleans Saints, and so is Jared Cook. He's been designated for being out. He's dealing with the groin injury, and Michael Thomas is still recovering from the ankle. Now, the good news with Michael Thomas, he's been practicing on a limited basis, so that means that he's close to returning. My guess is he comes back after the bye week, because they have a Week 6 bye. So that's just my prediction. Not saying that's going to be right, obviously, but I think Michael Thomas is getting closer and closer to returning. And then Cam Akers, he's been designated for being out, still dealing with the ribs that he's been dealing with. He has a rib injury that he's been dealing with the last few weeks. So that means Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown will be the backfield for the Rams. Now going on to the players that are questionable, but also game time decisions. Now, throughout the week, DeAndre Hopkins has become on this list because he is dealing with an ankle injury. He did not practice very much through the week, so it's not looking great. He's not on the right side of practice, so that means that there's a chance that he will not be suited up for the game tomorrow. So that's why I think Andy Isabella is a good option if DeAndre Hopkins cannot go. And then you have Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon, as of Saturday morning, so he is dealing with a chest injury. Not sure exactly how that happened, when they mean by chest. It could be a minor pec strain. It could be, who knows? But it's one of those things where it's something to monitor, because now you have to figure out, do I play him? Because this is the same thing I don't know if it's the same thing that DJ Chark had dealt with last week, but DJ Chark was dealing with the chest injury that caused him to be out for week 3. So with that being the case, is this the same injury that Joe Mixon has? So if that's the case, that means he's likely not to play. And then you got Giovanni Bernard that's going to take his spot. But it could be that he just has a bruise, and then they have to list out an injury report, and he may be good to go for Sunday, but just something to monitor. And then Terry McLaurin, he had a midweek injury at practice. He injured his thigh. So when I see that it's just designated as the thigh, I'm thinking it's like more of a bone bruise or a contusion to his thigh. Most players play through that, but he hasn't been practicing. He's been very limited at practice, so it doesn't look like he is going to go on Saturday or on Sunday. He is a game time decision. But like I said in my podcast yesterday, this is a very tough spot for Terry McLaurin. Once he's injured, could be limited on snaps, and he's playing Baltimore. So not a very good week for Terry McLaurin to be injured and then have the matchup that he has. And then with Atlanta, Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones are still questionable. It seems like they're going to still play. They're trending to play, but Calvin Ridley's dealing with the ankle and calf injury, and then obviously Julio Jones is dealing with his hamstring. So it looks like they're trending for to play, but just be careful on, make sure you just have a pivot just in case. And then going to questionable but expected to play. So these are the players that are expected to play. So for Atlanta, going back to Atlanta, Russell Gage, he was in the concussion protocol. He has cleared the protocol, so he will be starting on Monday Night Football. So he will be playing. So that's the thing. So my guess is the Atlanta Falcons will have all their receivers available to them for Monday night. But like I said, if you're able to get Russell Gage, if you're a Calvin Ridley owner or a Julio Jones owner, or if you have any player that's on the COVID list or on the games are postponed or rescheduled because of COVID, then Russell Gage may be a guy that you can play as well. And then now Devontae Adams, he's been practicing all week. Devontae Adams is scheduled to play for Monday night, so that's great. Devontae Adams comes back, which is good for fantasy owners. And then Scotty Miller, he should be playing tomorrow. He's dealing with the hip injury, but it doesn't look like he's going to miss tomorrow's game, so he's suited to play. And then Chris Carson is still dealing with the knee injury, and then Carlos Hyde is dealing with his shoulder. So Chris Carson has practiced a little bit throughout the week. He was dealing with that knee sprain that he sustained against the Cowboys last week. It looks like he's trending to play, but it's hard to determine what his workload is going to be. If I was him, based on that, obviously they have the medical staff with Seattle, so if they feel like he's deemed to play, then he's going to play. But I'm just wondering how much they're actually going to use him based on make sure he doesn't get he doesn't aggravate his injury anymore. So I hope that he's expected to play, but I hope that he doesn't hurt himself even further. And then last, Kareem Hunt. So Kareem Hunt came on the injury report this week, dealing with a groin injury. It seems to be minor, so it looks like he will play. But it always makes me nervous when it comes to hamstring and groin injuries because one move, one pivot, one slip, so one thing can happen where it could cause him to be out. So obviously if these guys are available and they're playing, you're going to play them. But it's one of those things, have low expectations based on the injury because they could re-aggravate their injury, which obviously will cause them to have a low fantasy output. So hopefully that won't be the case, but these are the guys that are going to be out, questionable, and game time decisions, and hopefully players that are expected to play. So I hope that was very informative. I hope that was something that you're able to take and actually go through your waiver wires and your free agents and kind of see exactly what's available for you. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. And just pay attention to the social media. I'm going to try to update everything on my social media on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram. So if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us over on Twitter and Facebook at the Gridiron Pod. You can follow us on Instagram at Gridiron Fantasy Football. So that's it for today. Good luck on your week 4 matchups. Hopefully you're not affected too much about what's going on with the games, but just do what you can, find your pivots, and go hope for the best. All right. So we'll see you guys on the Monday podcast. Take care.